Welcome to Double Fries No Slaw. October 6th, Sunday night, Florida State dropped a game yesterday to Clemson. We'll talk a little bit about that game, some micro stuff, some macro stuff, some big picture takeaways, and try and get some thoughts from you guys, of course, in the comments too. But presented here by Guthrie's. You can visit all three of their locations: 1818 West Tennessee, 2550 North Monroe, and 2870 Appalachian Parkway. Tailgated yesterday, of course, had Guthrie's out there at the tailgate, as we always do. Appreciate them, as always, for their support. Richie, I know that's been a little bit rough. We don't have to get real deep now. We can do it now or later. But how's your weekend been so far?
Yeah, rough weekend. We'll talk about it at the end of the show when we do our shout outs. But I did watch the game. I watched it again this morning. And oddly enough, I came away this morning feeling a little better than I did last night. But we'll get into all that.
Yeah, it's been different. Okay, well we can jump. Yeah, we'll jump into it. Yeah, weekend overall pretty good. Driving up there, driving up to Tallahassee on Friday, you feel like your mind's like a million different places. You got the storm coming in toward Tampa and the game and just big picture stuff with Florida State. Like it's just, I don't know, overwhelming, and maybe we'll make it worse or better tonight. But we can jump into it. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about it. Okay, you mentioned like you maybe feel a little bit better after watching this a second time. There's certainly a lot of positives that you can take away from it, and then there's a lot of negatives that are negatives about the game, and then negatives big picture too, which we'll talk about later. But it's almost weird. I almost feel better. I'll just say it. Almost feel better about last night than I did the win against Cal. Like, as weird as that is, like, not all the way, because I'd rather ugly win than pretty lose, which I don't even know that I would call last night pretty losing. There were positive aspects, but you're probably not willing to go that far, right? Like, that you feel better after a loss than you would have win. But you understand what I'm saying, right? Like, a little bit.
Yeah, no, for sure. In the Cal game, damn you, Cal, you should have won last night. Oh my god, a 25-point lead and just to blow it. But this is a Florida State show. We're going to talk Florida State football. But yeah, last night, it sucks because the game never really felt competitive, right? You go down 17-0 and then you start fighting back. The one thing I'll say about this team, and this is not to praise them for this, because this is to be expected, especially in the modern era of college football. They did not quit. They kept fighting. Yeah. But I loved what I saw from Brock Glenn, TJ. I really did. I do think we have our quarterback of the next 2 years. And, seeing, that touchdown pass to Amari Williams was amazing. Like, he fit it into the tightest window, found a way. He made a lot of great plays. He had several drops that would have been great throws. I'm very pleased with what I saw from Brock Glenn. Not so pleased with what I saw in terms of consistency from the defensive line and the defense in general. We'll get into Adam Fuller, and I know that's on the docket. But yeah, man, I did watch the game again this morning and felt like, man, we're 1-5. We suck. There's no getting around that. But I did feel that, man, that there's something here. There really is.
Yeah, the Brock felt, like he, against the toughest of odds, came in and did some things really well. And he seemed to lock in. Say it again.
That 4th and 9 scramble.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just, DJ all year kind of looked like he had concrete for shoes, like that doesn't happen with DJ. Like, and how much did it end up mattering in the grand scheme? I know we lost anyway, right? But yeah, if not for a couple of drops, it's Brock was the positive of the game, and there were other positives too. They made some nice plays in certain situations, but he was the ultimate positive. And I'll say this: the first 5 games of the year, Florida State was not enjoyable to watch. The Georgia Tech game, I'll take that back. The Georgia Tech game was like mostly enjoyable.
We didn't know. Yeah, we had
you just kind of thought like, oh, we're playing kind of poor. Like, there were some enjoyable parts of that. Since then, the team has not been enjoyable to watch. Cal was not a fun game. BC was not a fun game. Memphis was a terrible game to watch. SMU, I didn't ever watch, so that's how enjoyable it was. last night it was at times enjoyable to watch, right? Which was a little different than the rest of the year. And I think Brock kind of gave you that excitement. The roar for him. I know they don't show starting lineups on the TV, but I'll tell you, the roar for him being announced as a starter was pretty electric. Like people had been begging for it since BC, since Labor Day, and a month later they got it, and people were pretty jacked, deservedly so. And yeah, Brock played better than I thought he would. We talked about our expectations for him, and we weren't very high. We didn't think it was going to be better than DJ. And yeah, I don't want to go too far into that because we do have, some stuff on that big picture later, but he was a major, major positive. There were other positives too. You covered the spread because of two incredible field goal blocks, and I will give the defense a hard time here in a minute. But the defense did bow up and did force 5 field goals. They gave up way too much yards, way too much yardage for the game. But they bowed up and forced 5 field goal attempts, and you blocked 2 of them, which, some combo of defense and special teams there because it's the same guys on the field. But, yeah, there were positives for sure. There were, and I thought your young tight ends were positives. Amari Landon played really well. Ja'Kai Douglas catching. There were positives for sure. He got called back on the hold. But the pass down the sideline to Benson that he kind of toe stepped and got in. I mean, the play didn't go your way, but ultimately a positive. At the end of the day, though, this team, and I said this last night, this team, for everything positive they do, like you came out and you got the best PFF grade for quarterback that you've gotten all year, right? The best, not close. It was the worst PFF grade that you could get for that we got all year out of the wide receiver group. And so, like, man, I don't, maybe that's different with a new quarterback. I don't know. It didn't look like the drops were just like terrible throws by Brock or anything, but like wide receivers and a lot of your veterans, way to come out and let your quarterback down, right? Like way to come out. I mean, we'll just call a spade. Like they weren't good, and some of them made fine plays, right? Tight ends did a good job and probably saved you. Thank God that Amari and Landon were out there playing fairly well. But man, wide receivers, not great. Offensive line, like, we'll talk big picture about the offensive line in a little bit, but that unit, not very good. Some of the secondary, the group that I think the group that we probably felt the best about on defense. Well, we felt good about D-line, before the year, but the group that we've kind of thought like, well, at least the secondary is good. They weren't great, and guys were just running wide open, and we couldn't tackle back there, and we're bouncing off guys. So, and then the offensive line, like the center, you've got a 5th-year guy like that can't snap the ball. Like I've never seen Smith struggle with snaps ever, and so it's amazing that Brock even had as good of his game as he did because his offensive line and his wide receivers let him down all night. And so, yeah, the team does something to kind of encourage you and puts a freshman in there that kind of balls, and then everybody around him stinks. The running game, terrible. So yeah, as many as like excited as you are about the way that things went, kind of, there was a lot of negative. And I guess I just hit on, a lot of different thoughts there, but I'm happy to kind of hear your follow-ups or thoughts on any of those negative things too.
Yeah, the non-existent rushing attack, it's just baffling because that's been Mike Norvell going back to Memphis. He's always had a very good rushing attack, and even when we were terrible in 2020, we could run the ball. We can't run the ball this year. Like and it's not a matter of Trey Benson being here or not. Or, Lawrence Philly he would start at probably 100 plus colleges in the country of the 130. Whatever there are D1 teams. So it's not a matter of him. And, you touched on the offensive line. I think we can spend some time on that because that's a major issue. And then, what you mentioned, we thought our secondary was going to be our strength. And then you see, I forget who the other one was, but I think it was Conrad Hussey and someone else just collide with each other for a 57-yard touchdown. How does that happen in double coverage? Like Barstool put it out on their Twitter or their X, whatever you want to call it, that only Florida State could have double coverage and this happened. Like that's where we are this year. Yeah. And as a 1-5 football team, that's what we expect, right? It's not good. We've had so many I don't think. All right, let me say this. Let me back up. This is a bad football team. Like, you're not 1-5 without being a bad football team. But man, the talent on this roster, this is not a 1-5 football team, and it's embarrassing. That's where we are right now.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked big picture about recruiting and needing to be better at this or better at that, and um, they your recruiting does need to get better. Like, we agree with that, but like,
Yeah,
you're out recruiting Memphis and SMU and Georgia Tech and Boston College and Cal by like a pretty significant margin. Like, it's
yeah,
not like, oh man, you lost every game to like the Miamis and the Notre Dames and the Clemsons and Floridas and other teams that have out recruited you. Like, you're losing to teams that you recruit like significantly better.
you
And
have
so
a
what does
much
that
better
mean? Well,
roster
I
than
mean,
any of those
yeah,
guys. Yeah,
I think it means like your coaches are not good, right? Like, the talent is there, like they're just not being put. And so anyway, yeah, it just and to have so many of your older guys let you down, which again we'll talk about in a minute. But yeah, as many positives as there are negatives. The drops cost. I mean, you'd have gone over 300 yards this game if you didn't have the drops. You'd have probably made this a one score game.
yeah.
Without the. I mean, you're moving the ball down to start the drive in the second half, and Smith snaps the ball over his head. That's just unacceptable. Like, Brock's actually driving you down. What was the score at halftime? 23-7. So you were kind of still in it. And
Two
you think
possession
like,
game. Yeah,
yeah, two-score game. You're thinking like, okay, well, go score here, make it 23-14 or 23-15. I'm sure they would have gone for two to make it an 8
yeah.
point game. But and then you have a snap over his head. Like, it's just, there are a lot of positives, a lot of good takeaways. Again, you shouldn't really have to praise this, but I will say, like, I do think it's impressive for them to not quit, I mean, they're just not very good, but I do think it's good they didn't quit.
No, they
'Cause
didn't at all. At
yeah,
all.
I think, I think when they're getting beat right now, it's not because of effort. Like, second half of the SMU game was probably a little bit of both, right? But
Yeah.
when they got beat last night, I think it was just Clemson was better. They're better players and better coached, right? And a better team. So, but I guess that's a positive. You're looking for like small wins or small victories, I guess, at this point. But a few positives, just still way too many negatives. They're just, and so maybe to take it back positive a little bit, this is one of the better teams you're going to play. It's probably the best coached team you're going to play. Like, I don't like I don't love Dabo or whatever, but like, I mean, Miami's not as well coached for sure. Notre Dame is maybe close to as well coached as Clemson is, but I think I'd certainly give Dabo's staff a little bit of an edge. And they took advantage of a lot of Florida State weaknesses. I thought coaching on our side was pretty bad. I thought we've said what we needed to say about Adam Fuller. I don't know that we need to go too much further into that. Kind of our thoughts on his standing here, or whether or not he should still be standing here. But to put your guys in man coverage and not have anybody watching a quarterback who can absolutely burn you with his legs, and to do that over and over and over and over again, and let him light you up on the ground, like, all right, coach, like, I don't know, like, when I play Madden, I understand to put a spy out if I keep getting burned like that, or play zone coverage. Like, that seems like a simple thing to me. Maybe y'all know more about football and you can help me out as to why we never went to that. But you would think the guy making over $1 million a year could figure that out. But just, at this point, he doesn't know how to coach zone. I mean, my opinion is he doesn't know how to coach zone. And so that's why we don't. We don't ever go to that. We play man, and that's it, because that's all he knows how to coach. And so, yeah, I don't know. Frustrating kind of on all levels. I don't know that I was encouraged by the way they played, because I thought they played with effort and intensity, and they kept it close, and they didn't get blown out, and they made enough plays to keep it respectable. But man, what a sad day for FSU football when that is what your takeaways are, right? Oh, I was happy they didn't quit. I was happy that they played hard, and they didn't get blown out. That's embarrassing. Like, just big picture, that's an embarrassing positive to have, right? So, all right, I want to talk about some of these other things that we have on here, but any other big picture thoughts before we maybe move on to some of these other topics?
No, I think this team just is what it is this year. I do think they're going to be more than a 2-win team. I really do. The talent's there. Again, rewatching the game this morning with emotions removed, I came away actually somewhat positive, which is crazy to say given how the season has gone. But I do think there's some potential there for this team. to win some games. Um, I don't know if you're going to beat Florida or Miami. Um, those are two games you'd love to win, obviously. But I think both those games are winnable, and I probably did not think that before this weekend.
Yeah, I feel slightly better about really anything that's left on the schedule, And I mean, at the
Maybe
end of
not
the
Notre
day,
Dame, but we'll see.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think Miami's probably. I'd take Miami head to head with Notre Dame right now just because of quarterback, but the rivalry could make that one interesting. So, all right, let's give a little love to Garnet and Gold. I was in there yesterday and grabbed some Columbia shorts. They're great. I'm wearing them right now. I'm just not going to stand up because there's no way for me to show you that without it being weird. So I'm not going to. But grab some Columbia shorts. Make sure that you're using the code NOSLAW, NOSLAW. Also, make sure you're following them on social media. They put out a code for like 20% off the other day. It's now expired, so it doesn't work anymore. But that's even better than we can give you. So make sure you're following them on socials and you get hooked up with when they run those limited time deals and stuff like that. So gardengold.com, whether you're in person or online, make sure that you're shopping with the best retailer for FSU apparel and merchandise. All the best stuff, garnetandgold.com. Go check them out. All right, Richie, there's something that certainly frustrates people. Actually, I'll say that again, Harlan. I'll just keep rolling. You don't have to go back and edit this. But, Richie, let's talk about this. Certainly frustrates people because they've asked for it for so long. And I have my opinions, and I will certainly own this because we'll get in the comments. I was of the opinion that going to Brock didn't matter. Which I'll completely own and wear. I have no problem doing that. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But that considered, why did it take this staff so long to go to Brock? Like, why would you that I think that is maybe we mentioned all the things that were frustrating in this game. That might frustrate me more than any other singular thing that happened in the Clemson game is how long it took to go to Brock. And I wasn't necessarily like I certainly wasn't cheering for Brock to do poorly so that we could say like, oh, Mike Norvell, see, Mike was right. I was right. But I did think that was what was going to happen. I thought Brock was going to play really, really poorly. And it would be like, oh, okay, all right, Mike, you were right about this. It makes me more frustrated that Mike was so stubborn, loyal, whatever, manipulated. I don't know what the word is, but it makes me almost more frustrated at how well Brock played that we didn't go to him earlier. So what are your thoughts on that?
So a lot of thoughts. And we're going to talk about, Trey's rant here coming up shortly, and the investment that a lot of Florida State fans have made to this program. And I do wonder if whatever DJ is getting paid, and college players should absolutely get paid. They deserve it. But is that salary, quote unquote, is that the reason we didn't go to Brock sooner? Because I've been on this show, people that have been with us all season or the past 4 years that we've been doing this show. Um, I've been saying it's time to move on from DJ. It's time for Brock Glenn or Luke Krummenhoek. And seeing what Brock did yesterday, I'm not going to sit here and say it was amazing. He did everything. He was Charlie Ward 2.0. No, but he clearly has a better command of this offense. And to quote the announcer from the game yesterday, he's got that moxie. Like he really does. He goes out there and he's a guy that looks like he wants to play football. DJ, I don't know if his heart is in it, and I'm not going to say it's not. Like I'm not here to be that guy. But man, Brock Glenn plays with a passion. And we saw it last year against Louisville. Not so much against Georgia, but that was a completely different circumstance. And I think we all understand that. But yesterday, that was a quarterback that had command of this team, had command of the offense. And if the guys around him were doing their job, we might be talking about, oh my goodness, what did we just see from Brock Glenn last night? We're not talking about that right now. And that's understandable. But yeah, I don't know why it took so long. I don't know if it's the NIL situation or whatever it may be. Maybe he's just not that good in practice. That could be a very real issue. But man, he looked better than any Florida State quarterback I've seen since Jordan Travis against Florida on Black Friday.
Yeah, it really does make you question it. And I've seen people speculate about the NIL stuff, and I've literally seen Ingram respond to it and say that like none of that is true. How like, I've seen people speculate that oh, he had to play this number of games because of the contract. And I've seen Ingram respond to that and say like, no, that's not true. So I'll say that. Like I do trust Ingram
Yeah.
on that. Like I don't think he would lie about that, especially when it's pretty verifiable. Like people do get their hands on those contracts at times, and like him be it, like if that was to ever really get out that it was, I'm not even like, I do think that Ingram is like a good person and wouldn't just lie about it anyway. I just think he'd probably not respond if that was the case. But I also think that he's not dumb and knows that like if that contract, like a Pete Nakos or whatever on 3, like got a hold of that contract and it was the case, like that would look really bad for the CEO of the collective to have lied about it in a public forum. So I really don't, but it does make you question it. It makes you question, maybe it wasn't in the contract, but maybe Norvell told him like, yeah, there is no, maybe the coaches told him when he came in, like, yeah, there's no battle. You'll start every game. You're our guy no matter what, kind of thing. Which if that's the case, that's not a good thing. Like that's bad.
No.
That's really bad. Okay, so here's my take, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. And I tweeted this last night, so if you guys follow me on Twitter, I'm just repeating what I've already tested on the open market, but it was after midnight. So I think it's just loyalty. I think it's just blind loyalty. I think it's the same reason Randy Shannon still has a job here. I think it's the same reason that other coaches that we don't think are doing a great job still have a job here. I don't think Mike has that killer, that dog mentality where he's going to make the tough decisions. I think it's the reason we were told about certain guys that would transfer, and they went into Mike's office at the end of the year and they basically begged to stay, and Mike let them stay. And we didn't upgrade certain parts on the roster. I think it's the same thing. To me, that's what makes the most sense. I can't buy the NIL side. I can't buy this. I just think that Mike, in his heart of hearts, knew that when he benched DJ, that was the end of the kid's college career. Not kid, right, with how old he is, but, much younger than Mike. I think he knew that when he benched him, that was the end of his career. And I didn't think he thought the difference was too much between him and Brock to where it gave you a much better chance. So, hey, let's go ahead and leave DJ in there. I'd feel bad for him if I get to the end of the year. And so I'm just going to be loyal. Just like he's too loyal to some of the coaches that are on this staff, just like he's loyal to some of the people that work behind the scenes. Like, I think Mike is loyal to a fault. And that is not just a Mike thing. Like, Jimbo was a little bit too loyal with certain coaches. Dan Mullen was really, really loyal with some coaches, and it probably cost him. Billy Napier's been really loyal with some coaches, and it's cost him for sure. And so that's not just a Mike thing. But to me, that's what it comes down to. I think Mike is just way too loyal. Hey, I brought this guy in as my starter. I promised him he'd be the starter. I'm going to honor that. But that is very damning. Like that, to the detriment of your own team. Like, and Mike hasn't told me that. Maybe that's not the case. Maybe Brock told him he didn't want to start. I don't know. Maybe there's something crazy. Probably not. But no. That's to me, that's almost what makes the most sense. And it might be a combination of things. Maybe it's the loyalty. Maybe it's promises, promises that Mike made in the offseason. Hey, this isn't a battle. This is going to be your job, blah, 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 blah. But it feels to me a little bit like that's probably an aspect of it, that he knew once DJ is benched, he will never play college football again. And so like, let's let him work it out. Let's let him get a little further. Let's let him go a little further. But watching Brock play last night was as exciting as it was infuriating, because you sit there and think about like, dude, we should be 3-2 right now. Or I guess 3-3. Because I still think, obviously we lost last night, but you think like we should be 3-3 right now, and probably thinking like, oh yeah, we could make a bowl. Like we'll beat one of the North Carolina teams. We'll beat Charleston Southern, and we'll beat Miami or whatever. Right. Or Florida, not Miami. But yeah, that's, we should have 2 more wins on the schedule at least. Right. And so I don't get it. I don't understand it. But again, I think that Mike is loyal to a fault at times, and hopefully he'll start to break some of that. It took a broken hand for him to go to a different quarterback. Because I'll tell you this, DJ was going to start last night, if not for breaking his hand. Like, I'm just telling you, he was. I don't care what anybody says or what Mike obviously wasn't going to say that one way or the other, but DJ was going to start. And so that was infuriating. The fact that we didn't go to him sooner, the fact that in your heart of hearts that DJ was going to start last night and we were probably going to lose by 40. I was excited about the way Brock was playing. I was also pissed the whole time, right? So that's the glass half empty, glass half full thought.
Yeah, no, it definitely was frustrating, because you look at Brock and he plays with a passion that you never saw from DJ the first 4 games of the season. Like you just didn't see it, and that's what's frustrating. Like in DJ, I think he's a good person, comes from a good family. And I think, he didn't come to Florida State to think, oh, I'm just going to, go through the motions and see what happens. No. But Brock Glenn, man, this guy, there's a reason Ohio State wanted him. There's a reason he was committed to Ohio State, and Mike went and stole him. And I think that's a big deal. And I think he has a very, very bright future at Florida State. It just sucks for him that this was what he was thrust into, right? His first start of this season was against Clemson, against the best defense you're going to see all season. But man, I think Brock Glenn is, I do think he is the quarterback of the future. I hope he does not hit the portal. I don't think he will. I think he trusts Mike Norvell and is all in on the system and what we're doing here. But man, yeah, it was infuriating. Like, why did we not see him sooner? Like, what are we doing? Like, we knew after the second game of the season that DJ was not going to be the answer. You're 0-2 at that point. What are we doing here?
Yeah,
Why
you're
are we?
only in the conference. Like you after the BC game, you knew it was over. Like
Yeah,
what were we saying after? Remember what we were saying after the BC game? Well, maybe we can make a bowl. Maybe we can.
yeah, bowl games off the table at this point.
Yeah, like come on, like that's what we were fighting for back then. Oh, maybe we want to start DJ, and I was saying it. I was absolutely saying it because what we were being told. But like to never. Okay, so here's the frustrating thing. I do believe that DJ was practicing better than like I've talked
Yeah,
to people
well, I
not
agree.
on the staff.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
the staff can't read, excuse the language, but the staff can't tell their ass from a hole in the ground. So I don't really trust what they have to say about quarterbacks. But I trust enough people that aren't on staff that go to practice that were telling me that DJ was practicing better. So that is a verifiable fact. Like DJ was practicing better. But like at 1-4, like to never even try Brock in a game again until DJ got injured. And I like Mike a lot, but I think he's full of crap when he says, "Oh, I was taking DJ out anyway." I doubt that. I doubt that
no,
that's what you were
no,
doing.
hell no.
Let's just call a spade, bro. Come on. To never even try Brock. You're losing by like 30 to Boston College. You're getting blown out by SMU. You're struggling to score ever. I'm not saying you should have played him against Georgia Tech. Like I get it. Like then you probably wouldn't have known. But yeah, that is frustrating to never even try. Like to never say like, "Hey man, not your night. We're gonna go with Brock for a couple of drives. See what he's got. You're starting the next game, right? Like, hey, you're struggling against Memphis. We're gonna take you out, but Brock's gonna finish. You'll start against Cal. Like you're not benched for the rest of the year. I don't know. Stubbornness. Coaches are obviously very very stubborn, and so it's frustrating. But it was infuriating. But you're right. I feel good about Brock going forward. I feel good. I mean, you got him 2 weeks to get ready for Duke. Dude, I don't know. I might
Get ready for Duke. Oh my goodness, is this where we're at, TJ?
I might have a whole bunch of hopium, and I might even pick us to beat Duke because I'll be on Brocktoberfest still. But yeah, frustrating for sure. Richie, give a little bit of Roback love, and then I want to talk about some other young guys as well.
Yeah, definitely want to shout out Roback. My wife bought me a Roback polo last year, and it was amazing. Honestly, TJ and I, we get offers, and we only do business with people we truly enjoy their business. And I'm wearing the Roback polo right now, or Roback hoodie right now, Florida State. Um, One of my favorite ones ever, DFNS 20. That's RHOBACK.com, RHOBACK.com, and use DFNS20, first time purchase only. You'll get 20% off. And they make the best performance gear you'll ever find. My wife just bought a Skort. Yeah, Skort. What the heck is that, TJ? Apparently that's a thing. But yeah, no, they really do make the best gear you could possibly find. Use our promo code DFNS20 at RHOBACK.com. And trust me, you will not regret this purchase.
All right. So on Saturday night, Florida State played a lot of young talent. I'll credit Brendan Sinone here of Noles 247 because I saw him tweet this. 37% of FSU's offensive snaps came from underclassmen. 28% from true freshmen. 28% of the defensive snaps came from underclassmen. So, the free my youngins hashtag, right? That people were, that the team was going off on. I appreciate the fact that they are moving to that somewhat. I think it's been time, and it's certainly time now. You're not getting that performance out of the older guys. And listen, I'm not here to rail on anybody, but at the end of the day, a lot of these guys have like 6 games left in their FSU careers, right? Yeah. Or they're just careers in general. And if they're not getting it done, we talked about it in the last one. You can't be loyal to a fault. Like, I don't mean this in like a terrible way, but I'm good not seeing 21-1 drop passes on my field anymore. Like I'm good moving on from there. I'm good giving those reps to Moore and McCoy and Hakeem and Ja'Kai. And did Jaylen Brown not play last night? I never saw him catch anything. I don't know if he was in or not, but
Benson had a game.
Yeah, Malik Benson, I'm fine with that. But the guys who continuously let you down, the guys who continuously I don't know what, how do you get to be in this offense for 5 years and still drop passes? Like, I'm good with it. Like, I'm good moving on there. And again, nothing's a personal shot at any specific player. It's time to move on. I don't understand, and maybe they don't have a better option, right? Like, Rizzy probably backing him up. I'm probably good on seeing another bad snap ever again at Florida State. Like, if you can't snap the ball, and maybe he was having a bad day, I don't know. If you can't snap the ball, you're not going to be here next year anyway. We need to move to youth. So I appreciate the fact that we have played a lot of youth. I think we need to go to that even more fully, especially, Richie, with the bye week coming up. You have 2 weeks to kind of get ready to do that. But it's the veterans on this team, and the young guys are going to make young guy mistakes. Don't get me wrong. But I'd rather have them making mistakes than the guys that are 4 and 5 years in this system. It is time, and to the staff's credit, right? Like 38% of one, 27% of the other. Like, it's about a third. It's not like they're just, and there are upperclassmen that are playing well, like Ja'Kai, and obviously your defensive line is at times playing really well. Your secondary is fine. But I do think that it's time to go to a lot more young guys, because you've seen so much better out of them. And, again, I don't know. I'm done with the drops. I'm done with the bad snaps. I'm not even really blaming those guys. I think both of those are, probably on development, right? Like, I think some of the worst developers on the team are their coaches. But still, like, it's just time to move on, and it's time to continue that youth movement and getting even more of those young guys in.
Yeah, no, I absolutely. You're 1-5, and I know Mike Norvell, in the back of his mind, he's probably thinking, we can still make a bowl. Dude, you're not making a bowl game this year. This team is a 3-4 on a really, really good couple of weeks. You might be a 5-win team. It's not happening. So why are we doing this? Let's get the future ready. Let's get these young guys prepared. And it's frustrating, as a fan, that we have to watch this product every Saturday, because it's disgusting. And we'll talk about that when we talk about Trey's rant, where he's very accurate. But, man, just move forward. Get ready for the future. This season is done. And the sooner Mike Norvell can accept that this season is over, the better that this program will be moving forward.
We talked about this, but it certainly is a little bit frustrating that not only that it's older guys, but it's positions that, like, you've recruited fairly well. Like, offensive line and wide receiver are probably the most disappointing to me. And I don't think anybody thought that, like, again, Seminole legend. I understand he won a championship. This is not a personal attack. Probably a great guy. I feel like you have to preface that every time you are critical of anybody ever. I'm never taking any personal shots at any guys on here. I don't know any of these guys like that, So, but anyway, you've recruited wide receiver fairly well. You've had a lot of talent in there. I know Destin got hurt this year, but you brought Hakeem in. You've brought a lot of 4-stars in over the years. You've done a really good job at that position in recruiting, and you just haven't been able to develop. Like, you just haven't been able to, like. When was the last time we had a first rounder? I mean, Keon was close, right? But I don't know how much we get credit for that. We just kind of brought him in last second. The
Yeah.
development at that position is not good. And let's be very fair, too. I know that a lot of people went to bat for Alex Atkins, and they love Alex Atkins because he's a great guy and he's so much fun and he's young and hip and cool, all those things. And he's recruited very, very well. What has he done with any of his recruits, man? Like, there's a standard
Nothing.
here. This is Florida State, and you just have to be better. You just need to be better at developing talent. And at the end of the day, they're not doing it. And I do think that, the guys and you could talk about other things too. Like, has quarterback development been great at Florida State? Probably not, right? D-line's done pretty well. Linebacker, I mean, Randy hasn't brought in a quality linebacker like ever, so that's a tough one to even judge. And defensive back development's been pretty good. So, there is development happening other places, but man, some of the worst that there is wide receiver and offensive line, and they're the guys that seem to have let you down the most last night or on Saturday night. And so that's certainly where the focus is. But to me, I'm not even blaming those kids or those guys, right? Like, people hate when you say kids now because they're getting paid, but they're all still younger than me, so whatever.
They're making more than us, TJ.
Yeah, I'm not even blaming the players. I don't think they've been set up for success. I don't think they've been developed very well. And unfortunately, they're like the best option you have. But again, that's why I think it's time to just go to the young guys. Like, it's time to move on and just get going, because it is so frustrating to watch a guy that's been in the system for 5 years snap a ball over a quarterback's head when he's driving you down the field against the best defense you're going to play all year. Down 2 scores, you're worried about the team quitting, you're worried about the team checking out, you're worried about the team not playing hard, and you've got a freshman driving you down, and you got a center that snaps the ball over his head. And you're just dog, how is that a real life thing?
No, but it makes no sense. And again, I cannot give enough kudos to Brock Glenn. He was put into an unbelievable situation. Like, no quarterback should be thrown into that. And the way he handled it, I'll go back. I'm going to try and stay positive here. But, man, the way Brock Glenn handled the situation that he was given, even behind a bad offensive line, and receivers and tight ends dropping the ball, he just showed up and did what he had to do. I truly do believe Brock Glenn is the quarterback of the future for Florida State.
Yeah, hopefully we can develop that one fairly well. Yeah. And then, same thing. It was so telling too, because you had back-to-back plays, and I know the holding was on one of them, but you had the pass down to, Kentron dropped. Thank God the holding wiped it out, because you got to do that play over again. I
would have been so mad if there was not a hold.
Oh my gosh.
That was on the money. That was on the money, TJ.
How sad is it that you get happy about a hold because it erases a drop? And then the very next play, you throw one deep to you overcome the holding. Like, you overcome the holding, and Williamson drops it. Like, back-to-back plays of drops. I was, again, you had the best quarterback grade you've had PFF the entire year, and your wide receivers had their worst grade of the year, right? So, frustrating to see for sure. Hey, if you guys are watching live, if you're here with us, please do me a favor. Just hit that subscribe button. I know we have hate watchers. I know we have hate listeners. We appreciate you guys too, but just hit the subscribe button. I saw my buddy Sports Talk Jay, big Tennessee fan, said it doesn't cost you anything and it helps us out. So do that. If you hate us, then maybe you won't do it. But if you really hate us, then you can prove me wrong by doing it. So either way, hit the subscribe button. So, all right, Harlan, let's flip over to the other one, and then we'll continue to go on. Sorry, I didn't tell you, but that's why I was doing the shouts out. So, Richie, we talked a lot about being frustrated by some things on the offense. All right, let's leave this open. We don't have to agree here on everything, but I think we might. What are your thoughts on Florida State's defense against Clemson?
Disappointing. I thought the defensive line was very inconsistent, which was frustrating, because I still to this day think we have a very good defensive line. They just didn't show up, and they lost contain. They let Cade Klubnik run around in ways that was very frustrating to me. Just watching the game last night and then again this morning, And it again, frustrating. I guess that's the only word I can come up with. You talk about that 57-yard touchdown where, Hussey runs into another defensive back and, Clemson's player just catches it and runs into the end zone. Like, what are we doing? I've been probably more so than most people an advocate of Adam Fuller, and I think I'm out. I think I'm done with him, and I hate that that's where I've come to at this point, but I think that's where I am.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you gave up what 29 points, and if I'd have told you before the game, hey, we're going to give up 29 points to Clemson in this game, you probably wouldn't have been like that upset just with that number. I think that's
the way it happened. Yeah.
Yeah. 29, like, okay, well, I could get by that. Like, that's not terrible. Until you really like kind of dive into what that was. And Clemson just, Florida State's defense is so bad situationally. Like,
Yeah.
they gave up 29 points. Should have given up at the bare minimum, should have probably given up 35 if Clemson didn't, if you didn't have two great special teams plays. Your special teams saved you 6 points.
Yeah.
So really it should have been 35 in Doak. And Clemson also settled for 5 field goals. Is that right? Man, if one or two of those are touchdowns, this game gets really close to the 50s, right? Like it's really close to being really uncomfortable. Like it kind of felt good because you covered the closing spread. It kind of felt good because it was a 2-score game at the end, and you were even driving. You even had a chance to get a little closer. It let us say things like, oh man, if we just didn't have a couple of drops or this didn't happen, that happened. Like this was a game, late. Not really though, because Clemson did whatever they wanted.
It was never competitive.
Yeah. 500 total yards in Doak Campbell Stadium is absurd. Absolutely absurd. And they are so bad situationally. People got on Mike. Yeah, I tweeted about this. People got on Mike for the timeout call with like a little over a minute to go, 3rd and 14, and I even tweeted this, like, that is a good timeout call. You've got the team backed up within their own 15. You're down by multiple scores. You're going to get the ball around your own 50 if you get the stop. You've got timeouts. You need to play to win the game. You need to play aggressive to win the game. That's a good call by Mike Norvell. Unless your defensive coordinator is Adam Fuller. Then it's a bad call by Mike Norvell because it cost you 3 points because your defense couldn't get off the field on 3rd and 14. And being somewhat facetious there, I still think Mike should have called that timeout. I still think it was the right call. You got to go out and execute. You got to put your players in the right position to get things. But a 3rd and 14 there where the other team is backed up way into their own territory and you give that up. Not only that, so that was a big one to me. Second, you cut the lead to 10, right? Like you go down, score the pass to Amari, touchdown. You don't get the 2-point conversion, but you do cut it to 10. The next play, you give up a 50-yard run. Like, and I know that execution matters too. Like the players matter too. But that is just so typical of an Adam Fuller defense for like all the excitement. Like the stadium was on fire at that point and people were jacked and people were like, it was like, okay, well, I don't think we can win this, but like we just cut it to 10 with 8 minutes left. Yeah. And for the next play, you to give up a 50-yard rush for whatever reason, right? Like, did you not realize they were about to start running the a 10-point, a 10-point 2-score lead with, 8 minutes to go? Like, did you not realize that running was about to be their thing? That was infuriating. And again, that is very indicative of an Adam Fuller defense. The defense, I will say, to their credit, they bowed up a couple of times, or a few times. They bowed up and forced field goals. And so they played that bend, don't break BS that he loves to play and let Clemson drive all over them all night. But I'm just telling you, it wasn't good. 500 yards is absurd in a game to give that much up to a Clemson offense that just frankly isn't that good. Like there's no chance they're that good. Guys were wide open all night. We mentioned how he doesn't know how to coach a zone, and so we don't play zone. And so it let Cade get off for 70 rushing yards, and that includes sacks. Like he had well over 80 if you take the sacks out. It just insanely bad defense. And then you look at it, you're like, oh, well, it was just 29 points. But if you actually watch the game, if you don't just look at the box score, the defense was terrible.
Yeah. No, they were, and to your point, the bend don't break. It's frustrating because the defense did, kind of do their job for the most part, but uh, just a frustrating game, man. Like again, I watched it this morning, and just seeing what I saw, you see that defense, and they just do not do their part, so to speak. Granted, the offense isn't doing their part either. And again, I want to make clear that's not Brock Glenn's fault. I'm a huge Brock Glenn fan, and I'm very happy that he will be our quarterback moving forward. But man, that defense was just frustrating. And when you have the personnel, you have potentially, at least three first or second day draft picks on that defensive line, DJ. It's ridiculous that they cannot create havoc that we want to see. And this is where we are right now. And it's fine. Like, we'll move forward. But man, it really is frustrating.
I have thoughts on the bend don't break, and here's the biggest concern I have with it. It'll probably work against Duke. Like, I think you'll hold Duke to less points than you did.
Great. We'll beat Duke.
Yeah. It'll probably work against UNC too. And it might even work against Florida. I don't think you beat Florida, but it might work in theory. I'll tell you where it's not going to work is down in South Florida.
No. Miami's going to kill us.
Yeah. Miami will not, because they have a better quarterback than Clemson does. And are there paths and avenues to beat Miami? Yes. Like they've shown the last 2 weeks that they're beatable if the ACC doesn't bail them out. But I do think that Miami has a much better quarterback. I think that that's going to be a lot of trouble if that's the way we try and play against them. If Clemson can go for 500 yards, and I think Dabo was, I don't know if he was like just being nice, or not. He didn't seem to like go for the throat, like maybe thought he would, maybe just, wanted to get out of Tallahassee with a win and move on. But I'll tell you who's not going to be nice. Mario remembers 45-3, right? Like he remembers that, and he will run it up because he is a jerk and he is an a-hole like that. And so just get ready. So that worries me. The bend don't break stuff worries me a ton. Like Cam will convert on those. They ain't going to be kicking 5 field goals. If we hold Miami to 5 field goal attempts, we're going to win the game. I don't really think that, but like that's like, I'll back off that. But yeah, and it comes down to, at the end of the day, it's like everything else. Like just you take on the personality of your coach, and where's the fire, man? Where's the intensity? Do you see who was it? Farmer? Was it Josh Farmer or Jackson? One of them coming off the field, like yelling at Fuller, and it's tough to tell exactly what he was saying, but it looks like they were having a disagreement. And Mike literally watched him yell at him and then just kind of like turned his head and walked away. I don't know if that's because Mike knows that he's going to be gone in 6 games or what, but man, just absolutely insane that I don't even think I don't think he's getting through to him. There's something about this defense that they're not getting the messaging through to these kids.
He's not getting through to this team. And, that's concerning. But again, the season is over. Nothing positive is going to happen out of this season. I hope I see a resurgence next year. If we don't, man, we got ourselves in a pickle right now.
All right, I got one more thing we want to talk about, but first, again, if you are watching, if you're listening, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. If you're listening on audio, make sure that you go over and check out the YouTube where we post more content than just the audio. So go check that out. We appreciate you guys as always for your support. And let's talk about this, and then Richie will get out of here in a few minutes. But there's a thought out there, and I think that nothing's ever like kind of toe in the line. Nothing's ever in the middle. People think that like if you're negative at all, you hate the program and you want to burn down Tallahassee and you're just like the worst person ever. Or the other side is like you can't say anything now. Like the other side is people really are trying to burn everything down. Like they really are the ones that are like fire Norvell. We need to move on. And that's not the case. I mean, we're not firing Norvell, right? Like, so it's, I don't, no. You might think he needs to get fired, whatever. Like that can be your opinion, but it's not happening. So just like shut up about it, right? Like just shut up because you're just dumb, right? It's not going to happen. So try and find ways to fix things outside of that. The other side is like, yeah, you're allowed to be somewhat critical. And, your former, I guess, host when you were the super producer, Trey Rowland of, on the bench, Noles 247, did a great job, I think, of towing that line and showing how you like still support, but also like kind of calling out the BS. So Harlan, do me a favor and play that clip. And then Richie, let's talk about it a little bit.
And outside of that, there's serious questions on the staff, serious questions in this program. And yeah, this is not okay. And it will continue to not be okay. So then you figure it out.
Wonderfully said. We will obviously, our job is to analyze the micro, the macro, but like the intricate decisions that make up the totality of these games. As a whole, for you, the fan, the listener, the consumer, the lifeblood of the Florida State football product, you need to shout from the rooftops. This is not acceptable. For the amount of money that everyone has put in, the school, the community, the investment, you personally have put in, the product that you are receiving back is so substandard to the amount of investment you're putting in. Absolutely disgusting. You should be mad. You are allowed to be mad. You should be loud. Continue to be loud. Let them know that this is not acceptable. We are not Illinois. We are not Rutgers. We are not some ho-hum Mac bullshit team. We have put a bajillion dollars into this program over the years. You are in a fertile recruiting ground. You need to demand better decisions from the people that get the money, and you deserve it because you are giving the money. So do not take all of these things, these qualifiers. We look at every game individually. Every game individually. The compression of decisions that make up a game. Overall, you deserve better for your investment. Continue to make.
He ended up going on to say, continue to make the investment, but absolutely hold the people accountable who are kind of in charge and running the ship. And I think he's pretty spot on here, Richie. I'll let you go first, and then we'll talk about it.
Yeah, no, I think it's right because, we spend our hard-earned money. Like, we all have jobs that to provide for our family and whatnot, and we take the extra and we spend it on the Battle's End or boosters, and we still should continue to do that. Like, I truly believe that. Like, continue to give to boosters, give to Battle's End, whatever it may be, but you're not getting a return on investment right now. And that's frustrating, TJ. It's really frustrating.
Yeah, it's frustrating because, I always say this, but I like Mike, and I really do hope Mike works out. We've done several videos on can he get it turned around, what are his chances, what does he need to do, blah, 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 blah. But I like Mike. And so, like, this isn't directed at Mike, but, like, there are a lot of people in this, like, fans absolutely demand better. Like, as much as we've made fun of UF and Miami for the way that their last however many years have gone, like, they've never been this bad. Like, ever. And as much as we pick at Willie Taggart and say that he was terrible and, all those other things, like, he was never this bad. Like, those Willie Taggart teams would whip this team's tail. Maybe not with Brock. Maybe things would get better. And that is absolutely unacceptable. This is the kind of failure, like, if it's any other business, this is the kind of failure that, like, heads absolutely roll. Like, if this happened to your job, this kind of abject failure, heads would absolutely roll. And maybe your business wouldn't, maybe your company wouldn't be in the situation to be able to fire the CEO, maybe, because of some buyout stuff, maybe that would, and I think that is Florida State's situation. Like, they're not in a position to be able to move on from the head coach, and nor am I saying they should, but there should be enough change. Like, and if there's not, Florida State fans do need to be pretty loud about this. Like, everybody was like super jacked up and super loud about the snub and about, their frustrations around the way that you got left out of the playoff and everything else. And so you should be equally as like, because that was, okay, that was like outsiders, like kind of putting you to the screws, right? Like, this is on the inside. The people responsible for this mess right now are no longer ESPN. They're no longer the committee. It's no longer Boo Corrigan. Like, it's the people that are making hundreds of thousands of dollars and millions of dollars in some cases to direct this program in the way that it goes. And Trey's right. This is not like some BS program out in the middle of BFE. Like, this is a top 15-ish brand of all time. Like, you could probably go all the way up to around 10 or so. But yeah, this is absurd. And it certainly needs to change. And I don't think that fans that call it out are wrong or doing anything that, like, you know, oh, wow, I can't believe people would be negative or call this out. Like, this is insane, and it should be called out, and heads should roll, and changes should be made from all of this.
Yeah, no, I agree, TJ. There's not much to add. The product we've seen is not good. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, it's frustrating, and I understand. You know, again, I understand where people are with, you know, the idea of, hey, you know, what's the appropriate level of, like, not, you know, freak out or accountability. Like, hopefully there would be accountability in this. And we've talked about that. We've talked about just where Florida State is in general, where things will hopefully change, where they'll get better. But I mean, I think Trey puts it pretty well. I think he, you know, certainly breaks things down well. And the fact that you should still support, like, I haven't canceled my booster membership. I didn't call up the battle. I know people have, but I didn't call up the Battle's End and cancel. And, you know, the impacts are so much farther reaching than just the fan base. You know, the impacts are the local community. Like, I was over at Garden Gold yesterday, and this certainly isn't good for their business. I was at Madso the other day, and, like, this certainly isn't great for them, like, what the game weekends are going to do. These last 3 game weekends, Richie, like, what do you know, North Carolina, I would not be surprised if that's a noon kickoff, which I'm taking my family, and I actually would be thankful if that was a noon kickoff. But North Carolina, Charleston Southern, and then maybe a 3 or 4 win Florida team. I mean, I can't imagine the attendance is great for any of that.
Give me a noon kick for every game. I can't imagine. Like, give me a noon kick and just let me watch the game, and then it's over, and I move on.
Yeah, that bad for, you know, again, with the amount of money and the amount of money and time and energy and effort that gets poured into this program, for this to be the big picture takeaway, you know, the big picture, you know, kind of the way that things have rolled. This is obviously, you know, somewhat frustrating, and I think Trey did a good job of breaking it down here. So go check out Noles 247. Obviously, Trey and the guys over there do a good job, and appreciate Trey for keeping it pretty real there. So, all right, Richie, let's close this thing out. I know you have stuff, you know, maybe you want to talk about, any kind of shout outs or closing thoughts, and then we'll work to get out of here.
Yeah. So Friday night or Friday morning, I got a really bad call. One of my best friends passed away. Had a heart attack, which was completely unexpected. And I've been able to be in contact with his wife, and, you know, he leaves behind his wife, a 2-year-old and a 2-month-old. Just hard. Like I hate to bring the show down, but that's where I stand. I love them so much.
Well, we love you, man. And it, you know, yeah, it puts a lot more perspective on like football and you know, all these things we rant about and, you know, get upset about and stuff like that. And so we are praying for you, and I applaud you for even sharing it with the audience and with the group and the crowd. And yeah, I know, definitely know it's not easy. So also, you know, on, you know, kind of in the same vein and kind of the same thought, like certainly thinking of those that were impacted by a pretty big storm, a lot of loss of life, and a lot of tough tough situations in North Carolina, and it looks like a lot of tough situations coming here in Florida, kind of heading right towards us. So thoughts and prayers for folks that are suffering with that and will be suffering with that. And certainly if you're in the path of the storm or anything like that, make sure that you do what you need to do to stay safe, because we can rant about football all we want, but your life and your safety is probably a little bit more important. So, all right, not to be a super big downer, but I guess we just did there at the end of that show. So, but we appreciate you guys for tuning in. As always, we obviously no show on Wednesday with the bye week, but we'll be back with more content through the week. We appreciate you guys a ton for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Go Noles.